All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Faeria Showdown number 2. I'm Crow, and joining me is Joke. Joke, how are you doing today?
Good morning, guys. I am really good. I'm really excited for this match today.
And you guys didn't see that. I accidentally had an extra deck list up on the screen there, but we'll be getting to those soon enough. Man, I'm real excited about this too, Joke, let me tell you. The first one went so great, and I'm just really hoping that we have another epic game just like we did last time.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I have already taken a little sneak peek at the deck lists, and I'm really excited.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's start first with the players. We have Hithlum versus Cappuccino, as many of you guys just saw from that waiting screen there. Let's start with Hithlum. Joke, what do you know about him?
Well, what we know about Hitlam is that his name is Nikolaj. He's born in Latvia, 29 years old. He has won multiple championships in both Magic the Gathering and Netrunner. He played plenty of Hearthstone, and he currently lives in United Kingdom.
Okay. So
And we also saw him in Faeria Showdown #1, so he's a very consistent player here in Faeria, doing really well.
absolutely, he's been topping the ladder pretty much every time the top 30 gets posted. He's basically the reason that I got to the God rank in the first place. I was using a deck that he gave me that Pemmin gave him. There's a lot of interconnection at the top levels and that sort of thing. Lots of shared deck lists, so it's always really great to see that sort of thing. But speaking of which,
Yeah.
what about Cappuccino? Like I know these two players are on the team, but what do we know about Cappuccino?
Well, Cappuccino, his
Hmm.
name is Isaac, and he's from Canada. He has also performed really well here in Faeria. He's probably the most popular streamer currently. Play Faeria wrote a article about him just yesterday or today even, I'm not sure. And about card game experience, he has played thousands of hours of Hearthstone and also some Yu-Gi-Oh.
He's probably getting close up to thousands of hours in Faeria too at this point.
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
wouldn't
every
be
single time
surprised.
I turn on Twitch, I see him just there streaming and everything. So if you ever want a consistent streamer, definitely go to him. He's a great streamer. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. He's also 23 years old, so he's a little bit younger than Hitlam, but I don't think that is gonna influence today's outcomes at all.
No, absolutely not. A lot of people were making fun of King Dan's for his age with the last tournament, but we saw that he walked away with $2,500. So no one's making fun of his age
Yeah.
anymore. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into the format. The format that we're using is Relentless, but unlike the last Faeria Showdown, if you guys caught that, it's going to be Relentless Conquest, and I'll get into that in a second. What Relentless means is that players are going to have to make a certain number of decks depending on whatever the tournament is. In this case, it's going to be 4. But the trick is that any card that they use, they have to kind of conform to the deck building restrictions for each card. So what that means is that across all 4 of their decks, they can only have 3 of any copy of any card. So one deck could have 1 copy of Freedom Fighter, one could have 2, but that means their other decks wouldn't be able to have any. And then for legendaries, it's only 1 copy. Now the conquest part of it means that instead of the last deck standing format like we had last time, the winner is actually going to lose his deck. So each deck that the players bring has to win once for them to win the entire match. Joke, what do you think that'll change as far as the Relentless format goes? Do you think we'll see any changes in deck building or anything like that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, with our previous system, you could bring 3 really strong decks and just hope to not even have to bring out your 4th. So you could tech in more strong cards in multiple decks, where here you need to win with every deck, which means, I mean, all you need to do is have 1 weak deck and you won't be able to take this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really important that these players, if they're bringing new decks, they need to make sure they're tried and true, and they just really need to be able to win a game with every single one. And with that, let's go ahead and take a look at some decks. I know you guys are all interested in that. It's one of the biggest parts of this format is all the new decks that these players can bring. Let's start with Hithlum's list first. And Hithlum is bringing a mono yellow control list that you can see on your screen right now. It's got pretty standard things across the board, but the thing that really sets apart mono yellow control against something like a mid range or that sort of thing is just how slow it can be. And because of that, it runs cards like this Defender of the Homeland that we see right below the Soul Drain. Um, it's a 2/4. Yeah, sorry, I can't really point to it. I realized I had my mouse moving on the screen and it wasn't doing anything for a second, so I didn't know what to do. But um, but So the defender of the homeland is a 3 Faeria, 2/4 taunt, but you can only play it next to your god, so it's inherently extremely defensive. What do you think about this deck choice in this sort of format, Joke?
I think this deck is gonna be real tough to beat. I mean, it has some really strong late game cards, and it has ways to get to the late game as well. By playing defensively, you have a lot of removal, and I actually had the chance to talk a little bit to Hitlam about this deck in particular, and he's actually 16-0 on the god rank with it, so he's absolutely crushing people, and he has a lot of practice with it as well.
16-0. That's absolutely crazy there. I guess that explains the name of the deck. When he sent me the file, the deck name was Auto Win on there, so I guess that makes a lot of sense to be 16-0 with it.
Yeah, that's actually why I started talking to Hitlam, is because I just started laughing when I saw his email, and the deck list names there are just hilarious.
Absolutely. And now one other card that we should mention while we're here is this Zealous Crusader. Zealous Crusader is not really a card that you've seen in yellow control decks in the past. Most of the time they favor some bigger creatures like Azrai or that sort of thing. But recently the Zealous Crusader got buffed so that it would have Charge 2, making it a very powerful choice even if it doesn't get any additional buffs from being aggressive. Do you think that's a good addition to this sort of deck, Joke?
I think this is a brilliant addition. I mean, it's not just a charge too. It has 5/5 from the get-go for 5 Faeria with the great movement ability. It's really strong, and it gets buffed also. Each time you attack your opponent's orb, it gets +1/+1 unless you already played it. It can only be buffed if it's still in your hand or in your deck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that's enough about that yellow control deck, and let's look at what Cap is planning on taking it on with. It looks like he's going to be using his mono green deck. Now, he's been playing this mono green deck a lot recently with the tournament qualifiers and everything that happened a few weeks ago. He was running this deck at least very similar to this. So what do you think of this deck here? It's pretty standard Feed the Forest, isn't it? Oh no, it doesn't even have Feed the Forest actually. I hadn't
It's
noticed that before.
definitely not the standard Feed the Forest deck, since it
Okay,
doesn't run Feed the Forest.
I
Now
stand
this is
corrected.
a super defensive deck here. He runs 3 Therian Golems, and he runs Breath of Life. I mean, he runs a lot of cards that requires plenty of forests here, but they are also really powerful once you get them out.
Absolutely, and one thing that we do see that we don't see in a lot of decks is this Famine. There's only one of them, but Famine is a 2-cost event card that deals 1 damage to every creature on the board. Just help him be a little bit more defensive, probably worrying about a deck like Fairies or something that runs a lot of small toughness minions. So it's definitely an interesting inclusion there, but we'll see if it works out for him.
Yeah, the Famine is not really gonna be too powerful, at least not in this matchup. It's gonna be able to clear some Kalim's followers, of course, which is nice, but I don't think that was the thought behind Famine. He was probably thinking to take out some more impactful minions.
Alright, well, let's see if it works out for him either way. Even if he has that one dead card, that's certainly not the end of the match there. But the 16-0 might be a little bit scarier. So, I
Yeah,
guess with that...
but I think this type of green deck is gonna be, I mean, I assume one of the hardest opponents for Hithlum's deck, but I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see right now. I think both players are ready to go. So without any further ado, guys, we bring you Faeria Showdown number 2, Cappuccino versus Hithlum, right here, right now.
Hype! Let's do this.
All right. Yep, assuming no players went off to get any cups of water or anything like that, but I'm guessing they're probably about as raring to go as we are here.
Yeah, Cappuccino went to take a 5-minute nap, probably.
That's all the sleep he needs for the day, right?
Yeah, he streams for 23 hours, 55 minutes a day, and then he takes a 5-minute nap.
All
right, so this is really exciting. What do you think Hithlum is looking for here in his starting hand?
Well, he doesn't have any idea what he's up against here, so he's going to look for some kind of early defense, maybe some early farmers and that sort of thing. So I don't think he's going to keep this hand, because it doesn't have any of that. This hand just kind of sits around and does nothing. So we will see the
Yeah, no,
mulligan
that
here.
was definitely a dead hand. I'm thinking he's hoping for the Queen's Favorite or the Homelands.
Queen's Favorite, definitely a very powerful card. It's really hard to deal with when you just get it on a Faeria well, and it kind of guarantees that you have that Faeria building up throughout the match.
Oh wow, Cappuccino had the worst mulligan just now.
Oh man, he has no creatures, nothing, just events, and even the Breath of Life isn't a very useful one at that. Oh man. Really
this
brutal
is
start for him.
Terrible start here for Cappuccino.
So I think he might actually take this opportunity to try to build aggressively, and we do see that right here. He's building prairies towards his opponent and just taking that land control. Since he doesn't have the early farm or anything like that, I think that's a very good play.
Yeah, definitely. This also puts Hithlum, it's like put some fear into him, thinking that he might be rushed here, and he doesn't have any of his taunt creatures.
Absolutely. Like anytime you see an aggressive start like this, it kind of just scares you off a little bit. Just you have to be really worried about what your opponent could have, especially when he doesn't have any last nightmares like he started with his pre-mulligan hand. But we can see that even if Cappuccino is threatening that, he just doesn't have anything right now. So Hitlam doesn't even really have that much to worry about.
Yeah, Cappuccino has nothing right now.
And
but Hithlum has to play something because he knows if he's being rushed by green, I mean, green can put down some really big creatures, and if you cannot, if you don't have your last nightmare, which we know that he doesn't, it's going to be hard for him to deal with it.
absolutely.
So this Freedom Fighter draw is really important for Cappuccino.
That's exactly what he needed. And it looks like he's going to play this Ruin's Command even to play around Soul Drain, and it turns out to be a great play because Hitlam does have one of those in his hand already.
Yeah, do you think he's going to spend the Wind Soldier though to take it out?
I think it probably is worth it at this point. It's the only threat you've seen from your opponent, and if he's starting with the Freedom Fighter, it might mean that he doesn't have anything bigger either. So probably a good play to take this out right now.
Yeah, I think this is certainly a good play. I mean, we know Cappuccino's hand, and we know it's horrible. Hithlum also knows that Cappuccino only sits with 2 cards in his hand.
Yep, that's right. And Cappuccino is kind of just all out of resources at this point. He doesn't have any extra Faeria. He hasn't had any farmers coming down. This Tiki Caretaker is really all he's going to have at this point. It looks like he's going to play it a little bit more defensively too, just so the Queen's Favor can't start trading into it, so he can build up a little bit more Faeria. The real question
What
is
do you think Cappuccino's... I'm sorry, you go ahead.
The real question is how Hitlam responds to this. He could kind of save up, build the Queen's Favorite towards the Tiki Caretaker and hope to finish it off with the Vampire, but he might just go back and choose to farm Faeria instead. Which one do you think you'd do?
Well, now it's too late since I already saw what it did.
So obviously you would do exactly what this top player would do.
What do you think Cappuccino wants to do though? I mean, with his deck, I feel like if he just drags the game out, he's not in too bad of shape. But he probably already knows. He sees what Hitlam is playing and he goes, alright, I know what this is. And
right.
He might know that he needs to end it.
Yeah, I don't think that green is actually favored in the late game against this mono-yellow deck. The mono-yellow has the option of playing Windborn Champions and that sort of thing to just really get some long-range damages and just close the entire distance of the board right away. And it can even keep the green creatures at bay for a little while. If Cappuccino tries to taunt up or something like that, then Hitlam can just use Last Nightmare to clear it off and then just start getting in for a bunch of damage. So I think late game, this yellow control deck definitely has the edge.
Yeah, I think so too, because even if green starts to get big creatures up and wants to start being aggressive, Hithlum can simply just teleport them away to the other side of the map. I mean, that's at least something that Cappuccino has to be worried about. But we know, of course, that Hithlum doesn't run those cards, so...
Absolutely, but anytime you see your opponent... Anytime you see your opponent start with 4 deserts like that, it's definitely something that's on your mind, something that costs a ton of deserts.
Yeah.
So Hithlum is mulling over his options right now. He's probably debating between the Kaliem's Follower and the Defender of Homeland. I don't think it's worth it to play both because you kind of just throw away the Kaliem's Follower that way.
No, we're not going to see both played here. I really don't think so.
Yeah, I think the Defender of the Homeland is probably the way to go though, just because it's got all these restrictions on it. You really want to get it out and moving as fast as possible. But it looks like Hithlum's going to disagree with me. He's actually considering the Zealous Crusader instead.
Oh, he goes for the
Kaliem.
He goes for the Sky Prodigy instead.
Now, we didn't talk about Kaliem too much. A lot of times people think, oh, it's going to make these Kaliem's followers, that's great for aggressive decks. But really, that's not the case. Kaliem is a little bit slower card, doesn't have too much power on its own, but it can really kind of overpower your opponent if it gets in their face, which is exactly what control decks like this are looking for.
Yeah, and by putting it there, he knew that he would be able to take out the Caretaker unless Cappuccino puts down some other threat.
That's right, and it looks like he's going
So
to drop this Living Willow here. He probably considered playing the Ruinous command, but he's too afraid of Choking Sands, which destroys a creature with
yeah,
power 3 or less. The Ruinous command just plays
yeah,
right into that, and it would be too much of a hit for Cappuccino to come back in this game.
I think that's exactly what Hitlam was trying to fish here when he was drawing the card. He has 2 Choking Sands in his deck, and we have not seen one of them yet. So he, if he had found the Choking Sands here, he could have just removed the Living Willow and fly up and kill the Caretaker, and then it would be really, really hard for Cappuccino to turn this around.
Absolutely. Oh, but this Verduran Force is actually a huge draw here. We can see that Hithlum has no good way to deal with this, really. The taunt will protect it from the double attack in, and this Verduran Force might just go crazy. I can't imagine it doesn't get played here.
Yeah, no, I really think it will get played. Thanks for the thanks to the taunt also of the Living Willow. Hithlum won't really be able to remove it even if he tried to.
Yeah, not this turn, and probably not next turn unless he starts marching that Queen's Favorite over.
Well, now he does have the option to remove it. If he puts Desert in front of his orb, walks down with the Queen's Favorite, plays Windborn Champion to move the Queen's Favorite again, then he can trade into the 7/7 with his favorite and the 5/5. I think that's what we're gonna see here.
Yeah, we definitely see the power of Windborn Champion here. It just has so much mobility that green decks really can't deal with very well. So we'll see if that is what he does. It looks like he's not going to choose to put it in front of his orb, though. Looks like he's going to build out a little bit more aggressively.
It's going to be the same outcome, though, except that he gets a little bit more forward Desert here.
Right.
He's still going to be able to take out the Verduran Force.
If I think he prefers that Desert because it's less likely to get blocked by these green creatures coming in. And with cards like Shade and Vampire, you really don't want to get all your deserts blocked. You want to have as many options as possible to play them. Ooh.
Oh, wow. So he lets the Verduran Force live, which is a little bit scary with all the buffs coming out, potentially.
A little bit scary, but he doesn't actually have that much Faeria to just go face and kill him or anything like that. But Hitlam has so much power on the board, and he knows the Cappuccino can't really just play a ton of buffs on it, because he has to be worried about Last Nightmare. This is actually a great play from Hitlam here. I think this is a fantastic choice by him.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't see it coming.
Me neither.
It's still certainly a great play. Do you think the Kalim Sky Prodigy is going to start marching upwards, collect Faeria, and start spawning these Kalim's followers?
I think it's going to be a little bit dependent on what Cappuccino does here. If he attacks the Queen's Favorite, that Verduran Force will be left with exactly 5 HP. 3 HP. So the Kalim Sky Prodigy will be able to trade into it most effectively. So I think he might choose to do that instead of the Zealous Crusader. So we'll have to see what Cappuccino does here.
Maybe Cappuccino goes and takes out the Sky Prodigy, actually.
That would actually probably be better than taking out the 2/1. I agree with that. Now he does have the option of this Living Willow in hand too, which could lock down a couple creatures if he wants to make some kind of value trade here too. We also have to consider that Famine that we were talking about. It has a target on board right now for the 2/1, and it doesn't really get that much better than that for this deck. Wow, okay, so we saw Boar into buff into trade into the Sky Prodigy like you expected there. This allows him to develop something that'll be able to contest the 5/4 really well, even if the 2/1 trades into the 7/2. So this board just allows him to keep pressure. And I think that's the only really good way that he had to keep pressure on the board like this. So great job, Cappuccino, finding that play and just continuing to get a little bit on Hitlam here.
Yeah, but unfortunately Hitlam has the answers. He's gonna be able to, if he wants to, Last Nightmare this.
I'm not sure if I would Last Nightmare this here. You can trade into it with 2 hits, one from the Windborn, one from the Crusader. But it looks like he is going to go ahead and do it. Now, if this means that if something like Verduran Force comes down somewhat soon, he doesn't have as good of a way to deal with it. But right now, he's probably thinking this just gives him too much of an edge. He just needs to take this opportunity now, and probably start getting aggressive next turn.
Yeah, if Cappuccino can find some Therian golems here, that would be really hard for Hitlam to remove efficiently.
Absolutely. The first one, he'd have to trade 2 creatures into it. But he probably would just go racing instead. Since the Therian Golem's only 5 attack, the Windborn Champion can actually race it perfectly.
Yeah.
But it turns out Cappuccino just has nothing here. Okay, so yeah, we're going to see this Zealous Crusader come down for sure. That's a great draw here. Oh, or not. Okay. A little bit unexpected, at least by me. I would have expected the
I
Zealous
think
Crusader come down to threaten lethal next turn.
yeah, by attacking like that, he's gonna have a big Zealous Crusader next turn if he needs to deal with something big coming down.
That's true. I guess it wouldn't have quite threatened lethal either. But here we see the 5/6 come down. This is actually going to all... I was going to say it would deal with this very nicely. But this Windborn Champion can kind of just push it away, and he can get in for a little bit more damage.
Yeah, I think that's what he's gonna go for here, because then he definitely sets up lethal for next turn.
Yeah, he would have to double Prairie to do it, but I don't think that's too much of an issue for him here.
Yeah, no, he doesn't really need to draw here. He doesn't need to play any more deserts. No, he doesn't agree.
Okay, so we do see the double Prairie here. He's still considering the second Prairie.
I think we're going to see the Windborn Champion now on the right side, but that will allow Cappuccino to put something on the forest to block him.
It would, but he can still play the Zealous Crusader too, and this is just a massive thing he has to deal with.
Yeah.
But there's just so many, there's lethal coming in from so many angles here.
Yeah, what do you think Cappuccino is going to bring out now? Which deck do you expect him to pick? Or Hithlum? Do you think Cappuccino is going to stay with the screen?
So I think in this sort of format, a lot of times people really want to stay with the same deck if they can. Just so you don't give away any more information, that sort of thing. But let's see. Just a moment. He's not quite responding to me. I'll try to find out what deck he's going to be playing right now. Now, Hitlam obviously has free choice. If he sees this green deck and expects Cappuccino to play it, play the same one again, then what would he do? He might play that special list that we were looking at. I don't want to spoil too much for the viewers.
Yeah, let's wait a little bit until we find out what they're going to play.
Okay. And it is going to be that deck. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this here. Hitlam is going to be playing this deck right here. This is his 3-color, looks like a kind of mid-range to control list. I honestly don't even know where to start about this one. That joke, I'll leave it to you.
So, let's see. So Hitlam is bringing the blue, green, yellow, correct?
Yes.
Alright, so this deck is... I mean, it's basically a green deck with just a little bit of splash. It only requires 1 lake for the Heralds and for the Shifting Tide. And the Heralds are, of course, really powerful cards. Nowadays they are 5/5 creatures. That's also why they're a little bit more expensive. The effect it has is not quite as strong as before, but the body is way stronger. And then for the Demon Wrangler and the Lord of Wastes, they also only require one desert, so it's not too heavy commitment. So it's basically a lot of green with just 1 splash of the other colors. So it's going to be exciting to see how that goes.
And it's really easy to think that, this player's playing all of these different colors. That's just such a greedy list. But if you look at it like Joke was saying, and most of these cards only have the 1 land requirement, it's really no more greedy than playing Ethereum Golem in a mono green deck. You'll be a little bit more restricted on where you can place your creatures, sure, but other than that, it's pretty... it's still kind of greedy, I guess, but it's not too bad overall. Now, one thing that we do see in here as well is a 1 copy of Seedling. Seedling is something that I really didn't expect to see in competitive play for a while. What do you think of that?
Well, Seedling, I think, might be a little bit stronger here in the Relentless format, because players cannot put in too much early removal in their decks. And if you get Seedling out on your first turn or even the second turn, it might be hard for your opponent to punish it.
Okay. Alright, I think that's just about all with this list. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Now, one more thing I will say, Bloom Sprite is also in this list. And one of the problems with Bloom Sprite a lot of times is it can give you these hybrid cards that cost 3 of each green and another color. But with this sort of deck, if that happens, that's not too bad for him. He's already kind of got 2 more colors covered. He's kind of mitigating that potential downside of Bloom Sprite. But we'll have to see if we can find a Tarum or something like that, like we did last week or last
Oh yeah,
show
that would
match.
be beautiful.
All right, and I just received word from Cappuccino that he will be playing his green deck again. So we will be
All right.
seeing this 3-color deck versus mono green from Cappuccino. We'll see how this goes. I'm really interested to see how this deck plays.
Yeah, this is gonna be exciting. Let's see. Do you think Hithlum has the advantage here because he has the options of bringing some powerful cards from the other colors? Oh wow, look at the start hand for Hithlum.
Yeah, he's going to get off to a very quick start with farming Faeria and everything here. I'm kind
Cappuccino's starting hand is also really strong though.
yeah, a lot better than his last hand, that's for sure.
Oh yes, I think couldn't get worse.
So Seedling is actually going to be really good against this green deck, unless Cappuccino had a famine to deal with it right away, which we can see he doesn't.
I'm expecting double prairie here, yeah.
Okay, so still playing nice and aggressive, trying to get in Hithlum's face, which will kind of mitigate the Seedling a little bit. He's going to have to be careful with that for sure. Alright, so at this point, Hithlum has a kind of choice to make. He could build a forest on the right side, or he can build double prairie. If he builds a forest on the right side, he'll be able to farm 2 Faeria next turn, as opposed to double prairie, he'll get 1 this turn, 1 next turn. It kind of balances out all in the end. But he's actually choosing not to play that sort of farming play. Since he didn't know what Cappuccino was on yet, he decided to play the Bone Collector over by the Seedling, just in case he came up with some kind of removal.
Yeah, I can't really put it on the right side also if he doesn't have the forest there.
Right, he would have had to play a forest instead of the double prairie.
Yeah.
But we're going to see the second Bone Collector here, and Hitlam is going to take a very early lead in the Faeria count.
Yeah, but can he deal with the Verduran forces coming down? That's the question.
This is going to be really hard to deal with, you're right. The best thing that he has right now is this Rune Shrine, which will let him deal a little bit of damage into it, but still not quite deal with it entirely. So it's not only this Verduran force, but the follow-up play of probably a Grove Guardian or a Tiki Caretaker that's going to be really threatening from Cappuccino. He just has a really strong lot of pressure coming out here.
I mean, he can clear this now, but it would cost him all the cards, right?
Yes, he could play Tiki Caretaker and attack with Seedling and then Bone Collector. Do you think that's worth it?
But no, I don't think it's worth it. But it's tough. It's really tough.
Oh yeah, real tough position when green decks just start dropping huge creatures in your face.
Do you think he's considering putting down the shrine?
Possibly. He could be considering the Tiki Caretaker plus Shrine. So I wouldn't really fault him for that if that's what happened. So we're going to see at least the Tiki Caretaker here by the look of it. Now if you Tiki here, if you are going to play Tiki and Shrine, and he is going to do it, okay, so he's going to spend everything he has to deal with this right now.
Alright, but this way he establishes a really powerful board.
And yeah, looking at it again, I wasn't accounting for the Shrine. I thought that creatures were going to be traded off and everything, but this is actually really strong. Mono green decks like Cappuccinos don't really have a good way to deal with this sort of thing.
Yeah, now Cappuccino is going to have a really tough time coming back here because this big board and Hithlum running green, he's going to be able to take the engagements on his turn, which means he has the options to place the buffs.
Absolutely, and a lot of people say that anytime you're in mono green versus mono green, whoever gets the big first creature is the one who ends up winning. And we can see that Hitlam definitely has that edge right now.
Yeah, he also has the second Ruin's Shrine that he could draw into.
And here we see Cappuccino be forced to buff defensively, just so Hitlam can't go in and take an easy trade with his creatures.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're going to see a draw here from Hithlum.
That seems pretty likely, trying to draw into your second color or some other kind of buff spell. If you do draw into like a Tiki Caretaker again, then this is just absolutely one-sided for Hitlam, I think.
Yeah. Alright, so he doesn't want to...
Okay. So he's going to make it so he doesn't even have to trade in both creatures here. He's just going to start growing these bone collectors and making them massive instead.
Yeah, that was a good play.
Yeah, I don't often see 3 bone collectors on the board, but the way that Hitlam is just, having these guys dive in between each other and pick up all these buffs is really awesome play here.
Yeah, they're growing so quickly. It's going to be really hard for Cappuccino to do anything from here, I think.
And I think so too. Even if a Therian Golem or something comes down, Hitlam can already just trade into it pretty easily. That Faeria advantage from early is definitely helping out too.
Yeah.
And here we see the first blue card in Hitlam's deck. It's going to be a Shifting Tide, followed quickly by the first yellow card. Okay, so I wonder if he's going to show this to Cappuccino, like kind of show that this isn't just a mono green deck. I had some other cards in this too. I think if I were Hitlam, if I was this far ahead, I might actually try to hide that. That way your opponent doesn't know that, I don't have Shifting Tides in my, I don't know, Fairies list or something like that.
Yeah, he can't play it yet since he already drew a card. But I think you're right. If he doesn't have to play it, it would be wise to hide it.
Now the difficulty there is if he tries to kind of hide it a little bit and Cappuccino starts to come back. So he can just throw the game like that, which is definitely something you don't want to do.
So Cappuccino pulls out the Freedom Fighter. The Freedom Fighter will be able to take care of some of the creatures.
Right, but it's so tough to do that sort of thing because if you trade into the 7/2 Bone Collector, then the other ones get +2/+2 anyway. So it doesn't really take that much off the table. And even just trading into the 1/3 isn't great. Then you just lose your Freedom Fighter to the Iron Fur.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not Iron Fur, Deepwood.
So do you think we're gonna see a lake come down now, so he can take his 7/2 and attack into the 5/10?
Honestly, I think I'd prefer to see a Desert come down to play this Lord of the Wastes. He doesn't need to contest this Therian Golem right away. He can just kind of, block it in a little bit, which might be what he's doing right now. Just to make sure it doesn't get anywhere, and the Lord of the Wastes can just trade into it. I think favorably it's a... No. Sorry, I'm thinking a different card.
I think he's going to play the Shifting Tides here to move in the 7/2 and then... Oh, he actually chose to move the Therian Golem instead.
Okay, so kind of
I
developing...
thought he would move the land he was standing on.
Okay, so he's kind of developing Cappuccino away from the Faeria Wells at that point. It kind of makes it a little bit harder for Cappuccino to take control of those wells. He can still take control of the one on the left side, though. So I think it's kind of a wash either way. I don't think it really hurts Hitlam to make that play, but I don't think it really helped him much more than moving his creature forward either.
This is certainly not looking good for our Canadian player.
No, it turns out being number 3 on the ladder is just might just be enough to put you out of contention. But
he's actually number 1, or he was for a while, but the list was generated before.
And it's all about the list, isn't it?
Yeah.
So here we might see okay, so yeah, it's going to be the Iron Fur trading in, which buffs this 5/7 enough that he'll be able to finish off the Veteran Forest without dying. So great play from Hitlam here.
Yeah, these kind of plays are, to a beginner, really hard to spot. And Hitlam is playing so well right now, it's really impressive.
Yeah, but I can't even keep up with him. It's really impressive to me that he's playing so quickly that we don't have time to think through it. And it just goes to show how much he's played this sort of deck, that he can think through all this complex math so efficiently.
Yeah.
God. So these bone collectors are just going absolutely nuts right now. Oh my. I honestly don't even know what to say right now.
Cappuccino is going to pick for the next game.
Because I think this game
is going to be over quite soon.
Oh yeah, next turn he actually is threatening lethal. Wow. So I kind of like Cappuccino's idea just to stick with this list. It's got to win at some point, and frankly, if Hitlam expected him to pick this deck again, then that probably means that he thought that this deck that he's playing now has the best matchup against it. So this matchup is going to keep getting weaker and weaker against this green deck, if that's the case.
Yeah, and if he doesn't think he can, if he doesn't have confidence with his deck that he can win a game, then he's anyway never gonna win. He's just gonna win with some other decks and then in the end lose with this. So he has to win with this deck at some point. So might as well try. So that's the game.
Yep, just showing off a little bit more with that onboard lethal there. Really great game from Hitlam. Wow. I honestly, that was absolutely crazy that he managed to take early control of those Bone Collectors and really just push it. I've actually never seen Bone Collectors get anywhere near that good against a green deck.
No, me neither. He's playing so well, Hitlam. It's really impressive. I think we're gonna see a lot of more green decks like that coming out. If you can even call it green with all the blue and yellow splashed in.
I think it's a green deck. I think that's reasonable. But I just got word from Hithlum. He's going to be trying out one of his new decks. Now, I have personally never seen a deck like this before. I have no idea what it is, but it's called the Crimson Kingdom from Hithlum.
Yes! Finally, we get to see the Crimson Kingdom deck. That's the most epic one of them all.
Now, Joke, I think that you have just loved all of Hithlum's red decks that he's brought to these tournaments so far, and I don't know if it's just you liking red decks or if it's just Hithlum's style is really good for you, but let's go ahead and throw it up on the screen here. Now,
yeah, I mean, I like red cards, red decks, and I especially like Hithlum's red decks. But this one I like especially because of the theme. We got the kingdom here with the farm boys, the court jesters, the judge, the baron, the king's guard, queen's guard. We got a king and the big dragon.
I guess the dragon is.
He talked to me also earlier that he wanted to add Krog, just because it fits the theme, but it was just not good enough, so he had to cut it.
Oh, that's unfortunate. But I guess he probably would have tried to slip the Magda, the queen, in too, but it's currently banned right now, and we can't play it in any decks. So a little bit unfortunate. We can't see the whole kingdom here, but it's got a pretty good amount of it represented. Let's talk about a couple of these cards here. Now, it's going to be tough to go through everything, so we'll just have to pick a few here. So Baron Thulgar. It's a 4/4 for 6 Faeria that has a gift ability, so when it's played for the first time, each player draws a card and that card costs 0. Now we can see with a heavy control deck like this, there's a lot of cards that you could get a lot of value out of. There's only a few cards with less than 4 Faeria cost in his deck. So it's pretty likely that he draws a pretty big card off of this. What do you think about that inclusion?
Well, with this list, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a little bit risky play since you also give your opponent a card, but since he's the one including it in his deck, he can build his deck around it, so he's likely to get more value out of it than his opponent.
Yep,
it would just be very terrible if he happened to draw a farm boy and his opponent draws something like Garuden.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cards that can just immediately swing a game at a moment's notice. So it is really risky to play, but it looks like over time it's going to be pretty valuable for him. Now another card with a similar effect to that is Magnus. Magnus is a 4/8 with charge 3 for 10 Faeria, and it also has combat. You draw a card and it costs 0, so kind of like the Baron Thulgar's gift ability, but only for you. So that's a much more one-sided effect. Now, I think that a lot of the criticism with the Magnus is that it doesn't do anything right when it comes down, and its stats aren't really that great for a card that doesn't get that value immediately. What do you think about Magnus then?
Well, it's really expensive, so it's not really. It's not really recommended to put him in your deck since it's so expensive, and if the opponent transforms it or destroys it, you're in big trouble. But when it works, it's so funny. It's hilarious. I even remember reading some thread on Reddit about how the Magnus was. His opponent played Magnus, so what he did was playing double Yak attack and run into the Magnus with him, so that he would win from fatigue. That's so funny. I hope we see that here.
That's a crazy play. I don't think we'll be seeing any Yak attacks from Cappuccino here. It looks like Cappuccino is going to stick with that green list, as we kind of expected here. So if he has to win with it eventually, this might be the deck to do it against. I think this deck might have a hard time dealing with just massive threats like that. So we'll see if Hitlam will be able to pull it out or not.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried for Hitlam that he has to win with this deck. I'm happy that he brought it. It might get tough to take a game though with it. It doesn't look so strong to me, but I might be really wrong. I mean, if you get free ground shakers out, I mean, you can win quickly, of course, but you need to draw all the right cards for anything good to happen, it feels like.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get right into it then. Game 3 for Hithlum versus Cappuccino. Hithlum currently has a 2-game lead, but that also means he has a lot less deck selection going on here. So we'll see if he's able to keep winning with this, or if Cappuccino's going to start a comeback right now.
I'm hoping Cappuccino is gonna take this game just so we can see some more of his decks. Plus, that means we get to see Hitlam play this deck again, potentially. So
Yeah,
this is a great starting hand for Hitlam.
oh yeah, he's got all of these farmers, and he's just going to take a lot of Faeria control really early. And with how high his mana costs are, that's just a really good thing for this deck to get.
Cappuccino has not yet revealed his famine, so
Do you think
that
the
could...
farm boys are going to be subject to starving from a famine?
You never know.
Alright, now we see a little bit of a slower start from Cappuccino here. Oddly enough, against this deck, I think he probably does want that fast start just to quash these farm boys as soon as possible. But obviously, he doesn't know what
Yeah,
he's
I
playing
think it's
against
just
either.
because of his starting hand with the Grove Guardian require 3 and the Therian Golem require 5. That's probably why he chose to put the forest in the start.
And we immediately see the
He also
double
doesn't
farm
know what
boy.
he's up against.
Oh my. So this is going to be double farm boy, and next turn he's going to double farm Faeria, since the famine didn't show up yet.
And Court Jester will be able to hit the Queen's Guard, which is actually really good. If he chooses to play it.
Yeah,
He doesn't really need to play it yet.
that Queen's Guard is going to be incredibly hard for a green deck to deal with, since it doesn't have anything like choking sands or anything that normally you kind of expect with this sort of thing, or expect to deal with this sort of thing. And we see it paired with the King's Guard too, which is an even harder one to deal with.
Hitlam is just getting so much Faeria right now.
It just looks like a mono-neutral control deck. Alright, so let's talk about Cappuccino's hand a little bit more. What options does he have moving forwards here? I think he might need to drop the Grove Guardian kinda soon here. But if something like a 5/7 Queen's Guard comes down, it could be a tough choice to make.
Yeah, he has seen... I mean, Cappuccino has only seen one mountain so far from Hitlam. And with just yellow cards, it's really hard to deal with the Therian Golem as well.
Absolutely, and we do see the buff on this King's Guard. This could just mean that he's going to draw a lot of cards really quickly with this thing. So it looks like Cappuccino's...
This is not looking good for Cappuccino.
Yeah. It looks like Cappuccino is contemplating Grove Guardian plus some kind of buff. But first he's going to draw with this Breath of Life and see what he draws into. Kind of get these cards that aren't doing too much out of his hand. And we see another Therian Golem too, so pretty soon he's going to be able to start dropping just a ton of big threats. But he kind of noticed that Hitlam might have a weakness in his deck of his own. Hitlam doesn't have any good ways to deal with big creatures, just like the green deck he was playing last time. Whoever gets the first big creature might just end up taking the game here.
Yeah, and Cappuccino's going to be able to drop the Golem next turn, which is going to be... I mean, if he finds a way now to deal with this Grove Guardian, he's certainly going to run out of steam to contest the Therian Golem.
Absolutely. Now, Queen's Guard is pretty good at contesting a Therian Golem, especially when there's no buffs involved. But he's going to need multiple cards to take out this 9/12. And Hitlam might just start going aggressive here. This 9/12 is going to be locked in place for at least one turn. So Hitlam might have the time to just get in there and just, beat on his face.
And there's the Magnus.
We see the King's Guard drawing into the King himself.
Good.
Yep. Now, Bombslinger is still 2 mountains away from him, so he won't be able to play it this turn. But it could be very good at playing defensively in a little while here. So if you were Hitlam right now, what would...
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I was Hitlam, I would move up with my Queen's Guard, drop an aggressive mountain, and plant a Ground Shaker and start racing.
Okay, now that can be really scary with these massive green cards in your hand. And he doesn't have any more taunts in his hand either. So if this Therian Golem takes out the Court Jester, then next turn he'll be able to attack for 14. And it looks like Hitlam would be losing that race.
You can step down with your Queen's Guard next turn to to block the Grove Guardian.
Oh, I see.
Because Styrian Golem is not going to be able to move down.
So you're looking for
So
the
the Grove
4-turn
Guardian
clock.
will be in range for Queen's Guard next turn, I think.
I see. Okay.
But that might be a bit of a greedy play. What would you do?
I think that Hitlam might just, or sorry, Cappuccino might just look to control the board here. So if this Queen's Guard stays in place, he could probably move the 9/7 up to attack the Queen's Guard. But I do think that he has to make the aggressive mountain here. I think that is good, and we do see the ground shaker as well. So now it's really just down to where he moves this Queen's Guard. And he will move it to block the 9/6. So he's looking to, like you said, just kind of stall while he races.
And another Styrian Golem.
Right, now we see Cappuccino's hand here. He has things like this Living Willow that'll be able to buy him a lot of time too, though. So I don't know if this plan's going to work out from Hithlum. He's going to need to buy a lot of time for Ground Shaker to be able to kill.
I think the Living Willow is only going to buy him 1 turn, since we see the Bomb Slinger.
I think the Bomb Slinger is going to want to come down to kill this Grove Guardian next turn.
But 4/2 is also a really nice body to attack your opponent's face with.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard decision to make, for sure.
But yeah, removing this big Grove Guardian would be very, very good.
Now it looks like we're going to see a Therian Golem coming down here, or sorry, a Living Willow coming down here. And he's going to drop the Living Willow aggressively. That's a little bit surprising to me. So he's really confident that he's going to win this race. I think in the light of that sort of play, Hitlam definitely just wants to Bomb Slinger this 9/3 here. He could convert the this prairie right here into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going to go for here. Seeing that aggressive Living Willow makes, I mean, it gives Hithlum the information that, oh, a big Magnus, a cheap Magnus.
Wow.
Oh, that's exciting. I think he was hoping it would hit the Bomb Slinger though in this situation.
It's very possible, but he did hold off on placing his land, kind of just to hedge his bet there. If it did hit the Bomb Slinger, then he'd be able to go ahead and use that. But if it didn't, it doesn't really hurt him too badly either.
Yeah, I mean, this Grove Guardian is not going to be able to deal any damage this turn anyway, so doesn't really matter that he couldn't play it yet.
Yeah, that's right. Now it looks like Hitlam is actually winning this race at this point. I think Cappuccino is going to need to throw down a buff here.
I think we're going to see the Elderwood Embrace on the Guardian here. We'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough choice, but you really want to get in the 3-turn clock on the Therian Golem, but you also want to keep the Grove Guardian alive. So it's really just a question of what he's looking at. And right now he might be considering something like Garudon, since he knows that pretty much anything in Hitlam's hand could have gotten that buff from Bold Bargainer.
But he's gonna have lethal next turn if he buffs his if he buffs the Grove Guardian. So he doesn't need to put a 3-turn clock. He just needs to put 1 hit in now, and then he threatens lethal anyway.
Yep, that's a good call here. So he does go ahead and make that play, but we can see in Hitlam's hand he still has this Magnus. Now Cappuccino's not going to have any way to move that Magnus out of the way if it does come down between the Grove Guardian and Hitlam's face.
He needs to play Magnus now. That's just too funny.
Yeah, it's really the only option he has here. But that does actually delay his... No, it doesn't delay his lethal. I'm sorry. I was thinking that he would have to play a land to play Magnus, but the benefit of the colorless creatures like this is that you don't have to do that. So Cappuccino gets in for a bunch of damage here, and this Magnus is going to come down right where we expected it to.
Yeah. Cappuccino finds a heal.
So that heal might just keep him alive here, and I think that's going to be exactly what he was looking for, to be honest. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to have a good way to threaten lethal here.
Oh, and Hithlum finds another taunt.
Yep, the free Queen's Guard is going to be another taunt, just holding back that 11 power creature. If only had enough Faeria to play down a Therian Golem, but no, he actually...
From here he can Bomb Slinger and Queen's Guard.
Okay, and that will probably be what he needs to do here to stay alive. Because with this Tiki Caretaker in hand, Cappuccino is still threatening lethally, even if the 11 power creature is held back.
So he has 8 damage. He knows he cannot win this turn.
Alright,
I'm
viewers.
really expecting to see the
Sorry,
bomb
just a
swinger
quick
come
apology
down.
to the viewers there. It turns out that we had a black screen over the top of what was going on. I'm really sorry about that. Should be fixed very shortly here. I don't think it was up for too long, probably just a few minutes.
A black screen over what? The game?
Over the entire stream, unfortunately. So my apologies for that. That won't be happening again.
Alright, it happens. So yeah, this is...
Yep, so Bomb Slayer came down, and this Queen's Guardian is going to be locking down the Faeria Golem. So Cappuccino is going to need to find something pretty miraculous to be able to win here. And doesn't look like Freedom Fighter is going to be the card he was looking for either. So I think Hitlam is going to take this one.
It looks like it.
Cappuccino thinking through all his options. He really doesn't want to get 4-0'd here. Yeah, I don't see any plays that Cappuccino can really make here, unfortunately.
No, he needs to draw into another heal or so.
Well, even just the one more heal wouldn't be enough at this point. It would take him up to exact lethal.
Right, that's true. But he's running the... what's it called? The Breath of Lives, but I think he played both already. I think he's only running... yeah, he's only running 2 in his deck.
Yep, and that'll do it.
GG!
Wow.
Wow. Is this gonna be a 4-0?
It very well could be at this point. So it's really rough to see Cappuccino struggling like this. It's right now we're at 3-0, and Cappuccino's gonna have to deal with Hithlum's last deck 4 times in a row in order to bring this back. And we can actually go ahead and take a look at Hithlum's last deck here, since we know what it's going to be already. And it's going to be his blue-green fairies list. Now, this deck's been seen a lot recently, but there's one notable thing in this deck that we haven't seen in too many of them. There's actually no
There's
Genso
no
fairies.
blue fairies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so only the green fairies in this deck. We're not sure if that was a mistake or what was going on with that, but that's going to be a pretty big factor here.
I'm pretty sure it's intentional. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
Okay.
Do you think... I mean, now it doesn't really matter for Cappuccino. It doesn't matter if he reveals any other decks, since he has to win with all of them anyway.
Right.
And his opponent cannot switch decks. So do you think he's gonna pick something else?
Well, I might be cheating a little bit because he already mentioned it to me, but I was thinking that it probably is a good idea, because that way, if this green deck is actually as weak as it seems to be, he'll be able to use these other decks that might be stronger to get more information about Hithlum's last deck before he has to face it with the green deck. So I think switching to a new deck would be a good choice here.
Alright.
Alright, and one other thing I want to mention about Hithlum's deck here is the Tail of the Old Turtle. It's a card that we don't see too often. It's 4 Faeria to draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So if you only have 2 cards and you play it, you'll draw 4 cards to bring your total hand size up to 5. We don't see it too often nowadays, but with things like these fairies, it just draws you so many cards and pretty much guarantees that the buff is going to happen on them. So it can be really powerful in this sort of deck. But let's go ahead and take a look at Cappuccino's list. He's going to be using his mono yellow list. Now I know he was streaming this a little while before, and this is a little bit different than Hithlum's mono yellow list. This one's a little bit more aggressive, tries to use things like Eradra Monk and Deathwalker to really get in aggressively and get a lot of damage in. One of the big cards in this deck is Khalim's Prayer, which you can only play after you have attacked your opponent, but it gives you an additional 2 Faeria and draws you a card, so it kind of replaces itself and just gives you the extra 2 Faeria. Very powerful card and very powerful engine for this aggro deck.
Yeah, there is a cap on it. You can only play it once per turn. That's a recent change, so if you haven't been playing Faeria for a while, you might think that you can play all 3 on the same turn, but Right now you can only play one per turn, which I think is a really good change, because otherwise just good draw luck could win you the games so quickly.
Absolutely. And with that, let's go ahead and get into this game. We can see if Cappuccino can stay alive and show us a few more of his decks, hopefully.
What do you think a aggressive deck like this is gonna do against a Faeria deck? Do you think it's gonna be good?
I heard Cappuccino talking about this on his stream a little bit before, and he thinks that it's about a 50-50 or so. Like it's just really a coin flip as to who gets the better start. But with things like Gemsilk Fairies missing from this list, I think that the yellow deck's going to have the better chances here, because that Gemsilk is one of the hardest things for yellow decks to deal with.
Yeah, the Flower Silk Fairy is taunting up his opponent's creatures, though, which is pretty powerful against these Monk Prayer openings. And we see Cappuccino actually have a Oradrim Monk and a Kalim's Prayer in his start hand, which is exactly what you want when you're playing an aggressive yellow deck. The Oradrim Monk allows you to draw a card every time you attack your opponent. And then, of course, if you play the Kalim's Prayer right after that, you draw another card and you gain 2 Faeria.
Yeah, really a lot of potential to just really steamroll the early game here, if he can get aggressive here. No, Cappuccino likes to start with just the one desert and then start building prairies directly down to his opponent. So I expect to see that's what we'd see here.
Yeah, this is a good way to deny your opponent some information for just a little bit longer, because just seeing a desert in front of your opponent's orb doesn't really mean aggression necessarily. It can be a control deck, it can be a flyers deck, it could be anything.
Right, and here Cappuccino is trying to decide between the Zealous Crusader and the Dune Drake. Both of them can get in real aggressively from this desert tile next turn. And he's going to opt for the Dune Drake instead. So the interesting thing about this is that while the Dune Drake is a flying creature, he doesn't need to worry about building lands or anything like that. It does just die to the 2 frogs trading into it. And now there's 4 frogs on the field.
This is a beautiful picture.
Yep, so we can really see the power of these Battletoads showcased here. Now, it's especially powerful with things like Aurora, so if Hitlam draws into that, then Cappuccino could be in a lot of trouble. But as is right now, he's probably looking to attack in with this, and then play the 5/5 Crusader next turn. Or sorry, this turn. Which will then be a 6/6.
Yeah, you can also play the Prayer, which is going to be really nice. And he might draw something else that he prefers to play. So we're going to see him play Prayer before he plays the Crusader, and just in case he finds something else. So this Vampire is amazing against all these frogs.
And if you
When
could
you
have drawn
play
it a
the
little
Vampire...
bit... Go ahead.
I'm sorry, what?
If you could have drawn it a little bit earlier, it would have been a lot better. But right now, these frogs are probably going to be pretty spread out. It looks like he's only going to get to kill one with it.
Yeah. So when you play the Shaitan Vampire, you deal 2 damage to all minions around it. Or you drain 2 life even. So the Vampire will get stronger for each minion it attacks.
Yep, that's right. And it looks like we're going to see the Zealous Crusader come down here. So even when the Drake is traded off here, this Crusader is going to be able to get in for a lot of damage. And that might actually bait Hithlum into kind of moving a frog in the way of that, which would allow this Vampire to come down and get a lot of value.
Yep. Definitely think it was the right call to put down the Crusader this turn. Oh, Aurora.
Oh, so it looks like he's going to be able to trade off for both of these creatures this turn then. If he attacks the Drake with the frog that's closer, then Aurora's the frog that's farther away to trade into the 6/6, and then use one more frog to kill off the Drake. Seems like a very powerful play for Hitlam here, and I think that's probably what we'll see.
Yeah, this is really, really strong. Then he also has a frog 5 for if he needs it against a vampire later.
Yeah, but I think that's probably what we're going to see here. Now, Hitlam is still thinking pretty hard about something. And he's actually going to use the Frogify here. Interesting.
Maybe expects his opponent to have the vampire. And this way, the vampire is only going to be able to hit one creature, which is going to make the Aurora I mean, now he can trade perfectly against the vampire with his lore thief if he plays Aurora first.
Absolutely. So I imagine that's probably what we're going to see here, just so he doesn't have to take the 7 damage from the vampire. But now at this point, Cappuccino does have the aggressive land placement, so he'll be able to start playing things like a Roger Monk into the Column's Prayer, and he does still have a pretty strong chance in this game.
Yep. It looked like Hithlum drew everything he needed, but still, Cappuccino can maybe find a way. He might want to develop his fairy.
Yeah, but developing the fairy, well, I guess that is what he's going to do here. So he's going to just accept that he's going to take this damage. Oh no, okay. Good play with the Shifting Tide there. Effectively, he just used the Shifting Tide to gain 7 life. Pretty strong use of it, I think.
Definitely, and now he cannot play the monk into prayer either unless he develops another land first.
Yep, and I don't think he has too much of a problem doing that. It's kind of just what he has to do at this point to stay in the game. One thing that he does have to worry about is if Hitlam can draw an event next turn, then this Flower Silk Fairy will be able to trade into the Monk pretty nicely, which is something that obviously Cappuccino doesn't want.
Yeah, and also if it doesn't draw into an event, he can play Aurora Mythmaker and then draw and hope for an event, and then he'll have a 7/10 taunt charge 2 flying creature.
Yeah, that'd be an absolutely massive threat. Now Hitlam will be going down to potentially 12 HP this turn, if Cappuccino wants to spend the Kalium's Follower. Oh, and actually, that'd be a pretty good play here. So if he goes Monk into Kalium's Prayer, he'll have the Faeria for the Kalium's Follower, which he'll be able to move directly in front of Hitlam's God, and that'll kind of block the fairy from coming in to deal with the Monk.
Yeah, that's really good. Oh, but he chooses to go the other way.
Yeah, but instead he chooses the Faeria advantage here. With things like that Shaden Vampire in hand, he's going to need some extra Faeria coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Now that Wind Soldier was a good draw, that means he'll be able to deal with this fairy pretty well here, unless a buff comes down on it. Which we might see anyway.
This is intense. Do you think he wants to save his Ruin's Command for a heal, or do you think he prefers to buff his creature to gain more board control?
I think board control is actually a lot more important than people give it credit for against yellow. If you can't really deal with the haste creatures coming down all the time, then you can't live no matter how much healing you play. So I think as a buff it's more useful, but in this case I think I'd rather take the +1 Faeria and play the Outwood Embrace. Oh sorry, disregard that. I actually think we will see him save that for the health. For some reason I thought the Outwood Embrace would have been enough to make the fairy live, but yeah, that isn't going to happen.
It would have until he attacked there, so I was also thinking the exact same thing.
Well, at least we made the same mistake together.
Yeah. And he's been holding on to this Mythmaker for a long time now.
Yep, so here we're almost certainly going to see the Wind Soldier, and we do indeed. This will allow him to get in 9 damage and bring Hitlam all the way down to 5. He'll still be able to develop a creature too, so imagine we'll be able to see the Deathwalker come down. And this is looking very bad for Hitlam.
I really think we will see the Deathwalker come down here.
Do you see any way for Hitlam to live this turn?
Yeah, let's find the Unbound Evolution from the spell world. That's
so I guess he has the option of Aurora and life gain from the command, which does technically let him live, but he'll still be taking a lot of damage from this Deathwalker.
Yeah, and Cappuccino also has the Wind Soldier for 3 additional damage.
Hithlum is running out of options here very quickly. Even though he has all these cards in hand, he just doesn't have anything that's powerful enough to deal with these huge creatures from the yellow side.
It's a little bit awkward for him also now that he doesn't have the place before his aura. Otherwise, he could put down a structure in front of it to just block, buy him a little bit of time at least.
So let's see what he's thinking here. It looks like it's going to be just Aurora. Ooh. So with this play,
And then
he
he
actually
blocks.
is just dead on board. Oh no, he isn't. Okay. So he does make Cappuccino just have some kind of removal, but obviously we can see that Cappuccino does, and he's going to be able to use that and take this game.
All right. Cappuccino is doing it.
Yep, he's going to be avoiding this 4-0 victory that Hitlam wanted. So really good to see that here. We really didn't want to see a 4-0 either. I want to see as much Faeria as we possibly can right now. So
Yeah,
obviously we are,
me too.
yeah, we are going to see him using the same deck, and we'll see what Hitlam is switching into here.
While he's deciding, I see that we have like about 100 viewers right now, so I would like to take a little bit of time to talk a little bit about Coil Gaming and their weekly tournaments. If you haven't participated in them or watched them, you should definitely check it out. Maybe Crow can drop a link in the Twitch chat.
Yep.
I think your bot is also doing it already.
If the bot's doing it, if you want to see the link, just type !coil in chat and it'll come up. Yeah, I'm hoping to do more commentating for them in the future, so we'll see if that is going to be an option or not. All right.
Yeah, I hope to see you commentate more for them in the future also. You're my favorite caster.
Oh, thanks, Joke. I'm sure you're a little bit biased because I keep casting this with you all the time, but all right. But with that, let's get back to this. It looks like Cappuccino is going to be playing his red list, which is on screen now here. This is an interesting list here, and I think it definitely has a really good matchup against this blue-green fairies list. It most notably has these ground shakers, which blue-green fairies has a very hard time to deal with, since it just has a sheer number of creatures a lot of times. Do you think this is a good deck choice, Joke?
I certainly think this is a great choice. We saw Hithlum playing a lot of toads. We saw Hithlum play a lot of fairies, or one fairy. But if you run one fairy, you usually run more. So this deck with the ground shakers and the salamanders, it's certainly going to be good. We also have the flame bursts, and of course, my favorite cards, Devouring Plant and Crumbling Golem, that I used to climb the ladder with.
All of these cards are great at taking over the board from small creatures and just dealing with that really efficiently. Notably, we aren't seeing a Garudon, which is in a lot of red decks, so it looks like he's going to be playing a little bit more aggressively with this list, would be my guess.
Yeah, this certainly looks like a very aggressive list to me. I was actually playing with Cappuccino yesterday for a couple of hours, and we were running a red aggro deck. Not really similar to this one, but I think he likes to be aggressive with his red decks. I remember him playing his deck called Angry Red a few months ago or so.
Yep, that was a deck that he used to help himself climb to God rank on the ladder. It's a very nice free-to-play deck. I'm sure if you drop by Cappuccino's channel, he'll be able to give you a pretty good version of it, though. He might just link you to this version of the deck at this point anyway. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the game. Let's see what they have in store for us. Cappuccino versus Hithlum with a 3-1 in Hithlum's favor right now.
Alright, so from here it's going to be pretty good for Cappuccino because he knows what he's up against every single game. It's going to help him in his mulligan, it's going to help him in his land placement.
Right, and he might actually, if he's counting cards or something like that, like you can actually just try to figure out your opponent's deck list as you go a lot of times. But he could just realize that, you know, your opponent doesn't have any blue fairies, which is often a big thing that you have to worry about playing around with. Well, we already saw the yellow deck, so not too much about that. A lot of times you have to save choking sands for the blue fairies and that sort of thing. But if he realizes that these blue fairies aren't in the list, he might be able to figure out some kind of edge he can get from that.
Yeah, but Cappuccino is opening here with a dream hand.
Yep, here we are going to see a Steamforge Enforcer come down next turn, just this massive 6/5 threat into a couple 6/6s even. And we see Hithlum blowing the Spell Whirl, which is actually really good against these Crumbling Golems too, just to deal some extra free damage to him. So he might be regretting that pretty soon here.
Yeah, of course he doesn't know what Cappuccino is playing right now.
Yeah, but he's about to find out real soon. It's going to be very similar to this Angry Red list. And he's actually going to play this Crumbling Golem first, just kind of, I'm assuming it's to space them out a little bit, so you don't have, you know, your creature taking 2 damage every time your opponent plays a card, just 1.
Yeah.
Probably hoping that
Hitlam
burns all of
finds
his
the perfect
cheap cards.
answer for it right away.
Yep, so he can
Humbling
play
Vision will take it down to 2 health.
Is that how that works? I wasn't sure if it was before or after it came into effect.
I'm fairly sure it's that we first see the effect and then the golem lose 1 health.
Okay. So yeah, in that
We'll
case,
see if Hithlum knows.
Hitlam might actually be trying to frantically Google it right now. He's definitely taken a long time to think on this turn.
I really think that's how it works, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, but Crumbling Golem we might see become a little bit more popular. It's a pretty powerful card for what it is. So I'm sure this interaction will come up a lot more, and we have 100 people watching right now who will know perfectly if they ever encounter it on the ladder.
So it looks like he's not even gonna try to remove it. He's not really worried about taking 3 damage right now. He would rather double collect, and of course, because he did that, he's gonna be able to double collect next turn as well.
Yes.
Or he
Oh,
just
wow.
plays that.
So Battletoads actually counts as 2 cards played for the purposes of Crumbling Golem, so he's actually able to take it out immediately with that.
I think it might even count as 3 cards, but the golem only had, because 1 card is the event and then the 2 frogs.
Okay.
I know my crumbling golems died really, really quick to the yak attacks before, at least.
Yep, I could definitely see that. But so yeah, that Crumbling Golem just taken down immediately and showing why its text is such a bad thing to have to deal with. Big downside.
So Cappuccino was really happy with his starting hand, but now I bet he's regretting that he didn't put down the Steam Fortune Forcer instead of the golem.
Yeah, but there's only so much you can do. You can't just go on tilt or anything like that. And it looks like Cappuccino isn't too concerned with doing that. He's still playing nice and crisp, even though he just went down 0-3. And this Outward Embrace isn't going to do too much against the Crumbling Golem either, but the Shifting Tide is going to just start chaining these events together, and he might be able to bring this Crumbling Golem down possibly as low as 4 HP, just allowing him to trade the 2 cards into it.
Do you think he's gonna draw a card or move a land here?
I think he's going to draw a card, and that is what we see here. It allows him to draw into more cheap spells, so if he drew into Spell Whirl or something like that, he just has a huge potential to just go off and very efficiently deal with this Crumbling Golem.
Yeah.
We see the Ninja Toad come down, and then these Battletoads are going to trade into this. So still dealing with this very effectively, and it looks like he's trying to get aggressive very quickly here. This Ninja Toad will be able to hit Cappuccino's face next turn and develop an aggressive land, probably for this Flower Silk Fairy to come down.
Yeah, he doesn't have the 1 forest yet, so he's not going to be able to put down the Silk Fairy just yet. He's been forced to play so many legs just to answer what Cappuccino is doing so far.
Yep, and here we see an Underground Brigand come down. Obviously, Hitlam kind of wants to avoid trading into this for as long as possible, but the placement on this Brigand means that he's going to be Cappuccino is going to be able to deal with something with it. So he'll be able to get a pretty good amount of value. Effectively, it'll be a 1 Faeria 2-3. Pretty good value there.
Yeah, certainly. Do you think this? Do you think Hithlum is just gonna remove it now, or because otherwise it's gonna be able to potentially take out 2 frogs?
I'm still trying to consider that, and I think Hitlam is too. I think that you really want to get aggressive with this 3-2. So I don't think I would deal with it right now. I think I just let him go ahead and build towards these 2-2s and make that trade himself. It'll take him a few turns if he does want to trade into both. And Hitlam might be... Okay, so he's not going to play the aggressive land. He's going to be moving this Toad up to be able to double farm on the right side instead. I think that's a reasonable line of play.
And now he's just putting his frog there to prevent Cappuccino to play something right in front of the orb.
And I think we have the potential of seeing a Bomb Slinger right now. So I think the reason he was moving the Toad to the right side is if the Toad on the left was a lot less valuable than the Toad on the right, since he has the advanced land placement on the right side. So as opposed to trying to defend his orb or anything like that against haste creatures or something, it's probably more what he's looking forward to is the Faeria farming. But here we might see the Bomb Slinger come down. It'll be a decent aggressive threat, and it'll deal with one of the toads right away.
But it would... Yeah. He positions it there so that Hithlum can't just jump over with his toad and remove it.
Absolutely,
it's a good call.
Yep, good play by Cappuccino, nice and crisp. But Hithlum has a ton of Faeria right now, and this Gabriel Enchantress coming down would really shrink this Bomb Slinger down to a 2/2, allowing the Enchantress to deal with it really easily.
Do you think he wants to use it on the Bomb Slinger?
I think he's fine with using it on the Bomb Slinger. Yeah, I can't think of too much else that he would do unless he was trying to get aggressive with the Flower Silk Fairy and get the extra attack on that. But now he's kind of pigeonholed himself into, well, he's probably going to play the Lore Thief first. But with the double fairy, playing this Lore Thief is pretty high valued. He gets two chances to draw into an event. And he does manage to do it, so that's exactly what he wanted to see there.
Yeah, that was important for him. If that hadn't happened, especially now with the Ground Shaker drawn, that would have been really, really bad.
And this Ground Shaker is still a massive play. He's able to play this Ground Shaker, deal with both of the creatures on the left side of the board by trading the Bomb Slinger into the Fairy. So I still think it's what you have to play here.
Yeah, I don't see too many other plays that would be even remotely as good as that.
Yep, I don't either. Now it's possible he could do something with the Cobalt Barracks instead, just using the Cobalt Barracks to trade the 4/2 into the Fairy. But that doesn't seem like as high of an impact play, and you, at that point, you're really just kind of hoping your opponent makes a mistake, develops a lot of 1 toughness creatures, and you get to clear them all with the Ground Shaker. But I think Ground Shaker is just a stronger play here. Now note how he cleared off the Bomb Slinger first, so he's able to build it far enough away that the Fairy cannot reach it this turn, without help from Shifting Tides or something like that. So nice play from Cappuccino there to be aware of that Fairy and how far it can go.
Yeah, and even with Shifting Tides, with the land placed like they are, he wouldn't be able to reach it.
Oh, that is a good point there.
Do you think we're going to see a very big toad here?
So how big can we make this toad? He could be... He can only give it plus 2/4 right now. Well, we could double Elderwood the toad on the board, or play the Ninja Toad from hand. So that's kind of what he's deciding between. It looks like he's going to use the one on board to deal with the Ground Shaker. And as you said, a very big toad. If Cappuccino had another Bomb Slinger, he would, absolutely love that right now. Just great value with it, but that doesn't seem to be the case. He's going to have to play an Underground Brigand or something like that. And I don't even know if it's worth it to play this Brigand at this point.
Well, it's... he loses 1 Faeria basically, but at least he delays Hithlum from advancing towards his orb.
Absolutely, and Hitlam just keeps picking up great card after great card. This spell where we'll be able to draw him 2 cards effectively, and just give him a lot more options. And man, we see an Rose in hand now. Not really that great in this Fairies deck, but just the sheer fact that it's a 6/6 flying charger should be enough that it'll get played a little bit later in this game if Hitlam runs out of other options. But we see Hitlam just continuing his Faeria control on the right side, and really that's just what's driving this game right now, this 2/4 Fairy on the right side here.
I just realized that I'm sitting here all speechless, not saying anything. I'm just this game is so intense. I'm sorry. Alright, so... Wow. What do you think Hitlam will do here? I mean, his opponent has 0 Faeria. He has a big creature, so he could go aggressive. He has a lot of cards. He could drop a Snowstorm Lancer aggressively and starts trying to win the game.
Yeah,
that looks like exactly what it's gonna do.
Yeah, before he did it, I think Hitlam's probably thinking that if this Underground Brigand was the best play the Cappuccino had last game, he probably doesn't have very much. So he wants to avoid giving him as much Faeria as he can. So by not attacking this, he kind of denies Cappuccino 1 Faeria this next turn, since the Brigand will only be able to farm. But it looks like Cappuccino is actually going to go aggressive with it. Just go ahead and attack for 4.
Yeah.
This seems like a really desperate play.
Really desperate. Yeah.
Yeah, because Hithlum's going to be able to use one event to deal with this plant, or if he wants to play more events, just use the toad to deal with it instead and get in a lot of damage to the face here. Even with the nerfs, the Snowstorm Lancer is still seeing play here. Snowstorm Lancer, for those of you that might not be too familiar with it, before it didn't have that limit at the end of its text, it could get as big as you wanted it to. So people would play, Shifting Tides into Wisdoms, into just drawing a bunch of cards with events, and deal potentially lethal damage in one turn.
Do you think he's going to move the barracks?
He's actually going to move the plant away here. Not so sure about that. I think I would have preferred to see him draw a card instead, since he'll just be able to attack the plant anyway.
Yeah, maybe he wants to kill the barracks here.
And he does indeed, so just kind of eliminating all of Cappuccino's options, just that little hope that Cappuccino had in that 4 damage a turn, plus potentially some kind of haste creature coming down, but Hithlum's having none of that, just wants to deal with that and get it off the board.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred to move the barracks away, maybe.
That would have been just as good, actually. That way he'd be able to deal with the... So I actually like that play better joke, because he would have been able to deal with the plant, get that off the board, and put the Cobalt Barracks in a place that's really just not doing anything.
Yeah, and he would have his frog here being able to attack next turn.
Right. Now this Blazing Salamander can come down to deal with the frog, but now we're facing down a 2-power Salamander versus this Snowstorm Lancer, which could be an absolutely massive amount of damage this turn. Let's see how big it's going to get. I think it's going to be 9 damage this turn, if I'm counting right. It's possible he could take it up to 11, though.
I would have liked if he had put down the Aurora's Creation last turn on the Lancer, so he has 2 Lancer. Yeah, he does it this turn. He had the option of doing it last turn already. That would have been really powerful. He would have a really strong turn right now if he had done that. But it doesn't really look like it's going to matter.
Yeah, I think attacking with 9 to the face is probably good enough for him. That way he's still threatening lethal next turn with this Humbling Vision in hand.
GG.
Alright, and that will do it. Congratulations to Hithlum for winning the second Faeria Showdown. Just kind of took it 4-1. Really no sweat off his back. He just kind of showed his dominance there and showed why he's number 1 on the ladder now.
That was a very, very impressive place. And we didn't even get to see all of his decks. I mean, all of Cappuccino's decks, which is a little bit sad.
Right, and they definitely will be posted on Reddit and Discord and everything later if you want to look them up. But in the meantime, we actually have a... Hithlum has agreed to do an interview. So we'll be able to get him on here. I'm going to end the stream just for a moment, and we'll use that 10-minute delay to set up this call so we can have him in here. So don't go anywhere. If your stream doesn't refresh automatically, make sure you do that, and I'll talk to you shortly here.
All right.